Good morning, everyone. What I'm going to do today is just go over just the essentials needed for you to crop an image to 1,000 by 1,000 pixels square so you can work on your design brief Behance project. What I have here is Photoshop. I've opened it in my dock. It's Photoshop 2021. You might have a different version, but everything will work the same. I'm going to start by opening an image that I've already put on my computer. It came from my camera. I'm going to hit the open button. I'm going to find it. I know it's in my downloads folder, and this is the image I want to open. And I'm going to select open. And what we'll have here is the Photoshop interface as seen for the first time. Now, some of you will be opening a photograph and you will not see the same interface. In fact, you might see things different, like maybe your properties dock is missing, or maybe it's located up here. As you can kind of see, you can actually move things around to your heart's content to make your own spaces whatever way you want. But in order for us to be all on the same page, what I'll ask you to do before we start is go to Windows, Workspace, and make sure Essentials Default is selected. Now, if it is selected and everything is messed up, go ahead and reset that Essential Workspace, and you'll notice everything snaps back into the original position, which is always nice. So we're all starting with Essentials Default as the workspace. So a little bit about this image. This image is something considered a raster based image. That is, that it's made up of a lot of little dots of color. Each of these dots has 16 million possible colors. And the difference between a raster based image is that, and other types of image like a vector based image, is that this image has only so much resolution. In other words, if you zoom in, I'm panning here, and you can kind of see that at a certain point things are not resolved. Like you cannot, this little spot becomes really blurry as you zoom in. A raster-based image would never do this. If it were a raster-based image, it would be based on mathematical formulas, and as I zoom in, it will be solid all the way to as far as I can possibly zoom in with the software. So that's something to think about in general. It's like, are you working with something that has infinite number of like zoomability so that you can make it really large like a billboard, or is it something like this photograph that has a certain amount of resolution and no more, and trying to make more will not be possible. So this is like just what I have. I'm going to command 0 to zoom out so you can kind of see this again. So let me talk a little bit about, I just mentioned the resolution and the word pixel. So this image is made up of a bunch of little dots of pixels. These little dots have a place in space. It's a grid actually, and an actual color. And I just said each little dot has potential of 16 million possible colors. And how do we do it? How is that set up? Well, I'm going to go to image size so that we can get some information about this this image, and you'll notice that it tells me right away that this image is 4032 by 3024 pixels. That means there's 4,000 little dots across and 3,000 little dots up and down. Now if I multiply that out, that gives me about 12 million pixels, 12 million dots for this image. And that makes it a 12 megapixel image, and therefore it's a 12 megapixel camera that took this image, which is my iPhone. Yours are going to have different numbers here because you have a different camera. I also want you to notice the word resolution. Now, I'm going to turn off this resampling and watch what happens when I change the number for this resolution to 100. Watch the width and the height. You'll notice that because I'm not resampling, what I'm doing is I'm telling the Photoshop, hey, this image, even though it has 4,000 pixels, I want those pixels printed at 100 pixels per inch. So 100 for every inch, it's going to actually use 100 per inch. Now 100 per inch is what we're going to be using for photographs that are going to go to the web, like Behance, right? 300 per inch is what we use in fine art books and printing. So if you want to print something and make it look really good, 300 pixels per inch. And you'll notice that my camera, my 12 megapixel camera, the maximum size without deteriorating this image that it can print is 13 by 10. So something to think about, like this is why they ask you for a larger pixel count or a greater megapixel camera if you're going to be taking photographs that are going to be printed and they're going to be large. There's a lot of things that change whether or not 300 is too much. Most people cannot resolve more than 300, but for instance, if you're in a gallery and people are not able to like walk right up to the work, but they have to see it from maybe 3 or 4 feet away, maybe you could get away with 200 pixels per inch or even 100. So it also matters how far away the image is, because we can't resolve the pixels if we're far away from it. But if it's a book, definitely 300 pixels per inch. But since this is going to be going onto a website, we're going to put the resolution at 100. And notice nothing actually changed with the dimensions here because I turned off resampling. And that's a little bit about the pixel dimensions for this image. I'm just going to hit OK. And what that did is just set the resolution to 100 pixels per inch. And you'll see, I'm going to zoom out. Command minus, by the way, and Command plus are how I'm zooming in and out. Command R, you probably don't have it, but if you do have the ruler available, you'll see that by changing the 100 pixels per inch, I can see the actual size in inches on this ruler. By the way, I'm holding the control key down and clicking to see that this is in fact in inches, this ruler. You can change it to pixels, or if you're working in Europe, you can change it to centimeters, but I like working with it in inches. So I can see that if I were to like print this, it would be almost 40 inches at 100 pixels per inch. Okay, I said that this image has 16 million possible colors for every pixel. And how do I know that? Well, the bit depth for this image is, this is an 8-bit image. That means that 8 bits is the size or the number of levels of gray for each channel that we have. And you're like, well, what's a channel? Well, luckily we have a little tab here that talks about channels. All images like this one are made up of 3 different colors of light: the red light, the blue light, and the green light. If all 3 of those lights are on 100%, we get something called white. And if all of those lights are off, we get black, right? So black over here. Now, if we have all the red lights are on, I'm just going to click on the red channel so you can see what this image looks like with just the red lights being on. Wherever you see a bright white, that means that all the red is 100% red. Wherever you see blacks, that means that there's very little red in here. But you can see this image overall has a lot of red. If I look at the green channel and turn off the red, you can see that this there's a lot more contrasted because some of these areas have absolutely no green in them. And then the lighter colors are a little bit of green. And the same with the blue. If we click on the blue, you can see this area has almost no blue whatsoever versus some of the other areas. Now remember, this doesn't make this area blue. It could be white. So even though there's blue here and then here, you'll see that if I just select the blue channel, there we go. Come on, blue channel. You'll see that there's white here and various shades of white here as well. Just to illustrate this a little bit easier, I'm going to hide this layer for a second. So I'm going to double click this you don't have to worry about this part so much. But I'm going to create a new layer just so you can see, and I'm going to use my elliptical marked key, and I'm just going to create a circle, and I'm going to fill it with red, and then I'm going to jump this layer, and I'm going to fill this circle with something like green. So green is 255, okay. So this is green, and I'm just gonna move it over right here. And I'm gonna jump this layer, Command J, and I'm gonna fill this with blue. So you can just see how these things interact. So now we have the 3 layers, and I'm going to move this here so you can kind of see. And what I'm going to do with these layers is I'm going to do something called lighten. So this is how the 3 layers interact in the layers channel. So for instance, if I go to the channels layer and I show just the blue, like this, you'll see that this is 100% white, full blue, right? And the green and the red have no blue in them, and so this is how it looks in the blue channel. This is how it looks in the green channel, and this is how it looks in the red channel. And when we start combining, like I've turned on the green and the blue, you can see red plus green. I'm sorry, the red and the green. You'll see that as they add together, you get the yellow. And the same thing with the blue. If you add the blue plus the green, you get cyan. And then finally, if you add the red plus the blue, you get magenta. So those are how we make up all the colors. Now, each of these layers, I'm going to turn off these things so you don't have to worry about it, and we'll look back at our image here. Each of these layers or these channels have not only just bright black and white, but it also has a bunch of different grayscales. So there's different shades of red that we are seeing here. And the actual number of shades of red, and this is where we get to the 8-bit image, is 2 to the power 8, or 256 possible shades of red, going from dark black all the way to bright white, and 256 levels in between. And that's 256 possible shades for the red. That makes 256 possible shades for the green, and then finally 256 possible shades for the blue. If you multiply all that out, that's around 16 million colors, and that's where we get our bit depth of 2 to the power 8. A bit depth of 8 for an image is 8-bit per channel, which gives us a 24-bit image, or at least it has 24 bits per channel for the entire image, but overall 16 million colors in an 8-bit channel. And you can kind of see that when we select that layer, and it'll even it should even show us where that information is, and it doesn't, but that's okay. Right up here, RGB 8-bit per channel is how we're seeing that. And that's normally what you're going to be given to work with. Now, let's move on to the idea of, now that we know a little bit about raster and pixels and cropping, and we're going to go into the idea of cropping. Now, I've been using my move tool here, which is allowing me to, when I hit the command plus, it allows me to zoom in. Command minus obviously allows me to zoom out. And when I'm zoomed in, command plus, you'll see that I can actually move around by holding the space bar. And so that allows me to do something called panning. So these are the keyboard shortcuts you really need to know. Command plus to zoom in. Now you can see all these little pixels. Space bar to pan, and command minus to zoom out. Finally, 2 more important keyboard shortcuts will be command 0. And that allows me to zero out and see the entire image very quickly. So if I've zoomed in, command plus, and I want to see the image, see what I've done, command 0, that'll allow me to zoom out very quickly. You need that. And then finally, a keyboard shortcut that I use all the time is the space bar and the command key along with the mouse. If I hold the command and space bar down, you'll notice that the zoom tool pops up, and I can actually use the mouse to zoom into a specific area. Like here, click on the mouse and move to the left, or move to the left, or move to the right to zoom in, left to zoom out. And so you can use the command and the space bar along with the mouse to kind of get this scrolling zoom if you want. By the way, if you have a scrolly mouse or a trackpad, you can use that to pan around as well. You don't need to hold the space bar as long as you're on the move tool. Okay, command 0 will allow me to zero out. And you'll notice that there are lots of tools, and each one has like a keyboard shortcut. The keyboard shortcut for the move tool is V. I always use that when I'm starting so that I'm back to where I need to be with the letter V. The tool that we're going to be using next in order to create or to work with project 1 is the crop tool, C. So if you hit the letter C, it jumps to the crop tool. Now, every one of these tools has other tools hidden inside of them. So you might not see the crop tool because of your workspace, so make sure you're on Essential Default, and then you will be able to see the crop tool right here. But if you wanted to change it to a different type of tool, you could just by clicking and holding and then picking a different one. But we want to use a crop tool. And I've already given you, I'm going to zoom out, command minus, I've already given you the dimensions that I want this image to be. I would like it to be 1,000 pixels by 1,000 pixels. So at a resolution of 100, although that is not as important. But if I were to look at this context sensitive bar, normally it's set to ratio, right? And normally this is cleared. That means that if you did do a crop, and you can kind of see right here, I'm cropping it. I'm going to escape that. And you can kind of see that I can actually make any shape I want, right? That's because I don't have anything that's limiting the shape here. So what I'm going to have you do is go to width, height, and resolution, because we kind of know that. I know that my width and my height and my resolution should be 10 inches by 10 inches by 100 pixels per inch, or lines per inch, as you can kind of see. 100 times 10 is 1,000, right? And that'll give us the perfect image. So if, for instance, I just wanted to select this part of the image, and you can notice I can just kind of move things around and not the rest, all I have to do is crop here, or at least move it, and then hit the return key to set that. And if I look at the image size now, you'll notice that it is 1,000 by 1,000 pixels. It's perfect. In fact, it's all set up to actually go to Behance, and we see that there's still plenty of resolution, and you'll see at 100%, this is how it will look on the screen, that it's still pretty vibrant, pretty perfect. I'm going to undo that, Command Z, so that I can do this again. And again, 10 by 10 by 100 is going to limit my choice. So if I would love this portion for whatever reason, and I want to make it a little bit smaller, or if I want to bring something larger like this image, and you'll notice that you can go outside of the boundaries, so be careful, because then you're going to get a little bit of a line up here, which will be awkward. You don't want that, so make sure you stay within the photograph. So say you got something that looks like this and you like it, but you want to maybe rotate it, so I can move my mouse out here and rotate it a bit. You can kind of see it rotates it for me a little bit so that I have a different orientation for this. So maybe this is what I'm looking for. If I have it rotated and I hit return, you'll see that it changes the rotation, and now as I zoom in, you can kind of see what I'm seeing here. And that's what you're going to do for this. And then finally, I'm going to remove these because they were not originally there. Finally, you're going to just want to save this, and my suggestion is to save it as a JPEG file. So the way you save something is you go File, Save As, and don't just save it with the same name. You're going to want a JPEG file. So if Photoshop shows up, definitely change it to JPEG, and make sure you save it with a different name. So maybe I'm going to do 4.1 because that's my last name, and select JPEG, and I'm going to put it someplace I can find it, which will be the desktop folder. Command Shift D, and there we go. Maybe I'll even add an underscore so I can actually read it a little bit easier. I'm going to hit save as a JPEG. This is really important. There's lots of formats to choose. Normally we will be working with Photoshop, but when we go to an output format, we're always going to choose JPEG. It's just the best format. It doesn't have as many problems, and it's really small. We're going to hit save, and then there's one more window. You know you've done it right if you see this window. It asks you how big the image should be, and it'll even give you an example of like the size of the file. And if you have the preview box checked, you'll also see how terrible this will look when it's zoomed in. So for instance, here's the area that's zoomed in with a quality of 10, which is maximum. That's pretty good, right? Now, if I did the quality of 1 by just going down here, you'll see all the JPEG-y stuff that you sometimes see when you bring in a file to your computer. Obviously, the size is ridiculously small, but this is just not acceptable to view unless you're doing something. So I would normally suggest 10 or 11 because that will give you a small file size without compromising the quality of the image. So JPEG, quality 10 or 11, and then hit OK. And now I have saved this, so I can now close this up. And it's going to ask me, should I save this image again? I'm just going to, I have already saved it because it said it saved. And now if I look on my desktop, you'll see that at the it is saved and ready for upload to Behance. So I hope this helps, and I hope you've been taking notes and good luck with your first project assignment.